The observation deck of the Zephyrian research vessel Contemplation of Stars hummed with quiet activity as xenobiologist Kethvar adjusted the long-range scanners for the 100th time that cycle. The sleek, crystalline ship maintained its position at the edge of the Sol system, hidden behind the gravitational shadow of a rogue asteroid. For 3 rotations, the Zephyrian Collective had been monitoring the third planet from the local star, documenting what appeared to be a primitive civilization on the verge of discovering faster-than-light travel. "Fascinating," murmured Kethvar's research partner. Silneth, her translucent blue skin shimmering as she processed the latest data streams. "These humans display remarkable technological advancement for such a young species. Their development timeline suggests they achieved spaceflight mere decades ago, yet they're already establishing permanent settlements on their planetary satellite." Kethavar's 4 eyes focused independently on different readouts. The Zephyrians had been exploring the galaxy for over 2 millennia, cataloging species and civilizations with the methodical precision that had made them the premier xenobiological researchers in known space. They had observed hundreds of developing species, but something about these humans intrigued him beyond typical scientific curiosity. "Look at this construction project," Silneth continued, highlighting a section of their scans. "They're building some kind of massive structure in orbit around their moon. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. It's almost as if they're attempting to harness stellar wind for propulsion," Kethvar finished, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. "Impossible. No species attempts stellar wind manipulation without at least 5 centuries of space-based experience. The mathematical complexities alone would require computational systems we've only seen in post-singularity civilizations." The 2 researchers exchanged glances. In their experience, young species followed predictable patterns. First came atmospheric flight, then orbital capability, followed by lunar exploration, and finally systematic solar system colonization. This process typically took between 3 and 5 centuries for most successful species. The humans had compressed this timeline into less than 1 century, and now they appeared to be attempting something that should have been impossible for their technological level. "Hey." Soft chime indicated an incoming priority. Transmission from the Collective's Deep Space Monitoring Network. Kethvar activated the communication array, and the holographic image of High Researcher Zenkol materialized before them. The elderly Zephyrian's skin had taken on the deep purple hue that indicated advanced age and wisdom. "Greetings, research team. We have received your preliminary reports on the Sol 3 civilization. The Collective Council has reviewed your findings with great interest." Zenkol paused, accessing additional data streams. "We are particularly intrigued by your observations regarding their accelerated technological development. However, we have received disturbing intelligence from our monitoring stations in the Rigel sector." The hologram shifted to display star charts showing the positions of various known hostile species. "The Korthic hegemony has detected the electromagnetic signatures emanating from Sol 3. Their war fleets are already mobilizing. Intelligence suggests they view this system as a potential resource grab before the inhabitants develop sufficient defensive capabilities." Kethvar felt his respiratory chambers constrict. The Korthak were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless conquerors who specialized in subjugating developing civilizations. Their standard operating procedure involved arriving in overwhelming force, establishing orbital dominance, and strip mining entire systems while enslaving any survivors. "What are our orders, High Researcher?" Silneth asked. "Continue your observations, but prepare to document what may be the final chapter of human civilization. The Korthak fleet should arrive within 12 solar rotations. The Collective Council has determined that direct intervention would violate our core principles of non-interference." Zenkol's image flickered as the transmission prepared to end. "However, ensure you record everything. These humans may prove to be an interesting case study in how developing species face extinction-level events." As the communication ended, Kethvar and Silneth sat in contemplative silence. Both researchers had witnessed the destruction of promising civilizations before, but something about the humans felt different. Their technological leaps, their apparent disregard for conventional development timelines, and most intriguingly, their behavioral patterns suggested a species unlike any they had previously encountered. "We should increase monitoring frequency," Silneth suggested. "If the humans are truly unique, their response to the Korthic threat could provide invaluable data." Kethvar nodded. But his attention was drawn to the latest sensor readings from Earth. The humans had just launched what appeared to be a massive communication array toward the edge of their solar system. The power output was staggering, far beyond what their technology should have been capable of producing. Silneth examined these energy readings, he called out. "Either our sensors are malfunctioning, or the humans just broadcast a signal powerful enough to reach halfway across the galaxy." His partner quickly analyzed the data, her skin shifting to a concerned orange hue. "The signal is real, and it's directed toward multiple star systems simultaneously." "But Kethvar, look at the message content." The decoded transmission was surprisingly simple. BROADCAST in mathematical sequences that any sufficiently advanced civilization could interpret. "Attention, this is Earth. We are of your interest in our system. We've got this." Both researchers stared at the message in stunned silence. Young species, when they first detected evidence of galactic civilization, typically responded with either attempts at hiding or desperate pleas for peaceful contact. They had never before encountered a species that essentially issued what could only be interpreted as a challenge. "They know," Silneth whispered. "Somehow they know about the Korthic." "More than that," Kethvar replied, studying the signal's technical specifications. "This transmission required technology at least 2 centuries ahead of their apparent development level. Either we've completely misjudged their capabilities or what? Or they've been deliberately concealing their true technological status." The implications were staggering. If the humans had been deliberately presenting a false image of their development level, it suggested a level of strategic thinking that was virtually unprecedented among young species. It also raised the question of what other capabilities they might be hiding. Over the next several cycles, the Zephyrian researchers documented increasingly puzzling human activities. Construction projects that had seemed impossible were completed with shocking efficiency. Energy signatures that suggested the humans had somehow unlocked zero-point energy extraction. Most disturbing of all, the humans began launching what appeared to be automated probes toward the predicted arrival vectors of the Korthic fleet. "They're not preparing to defend," Silneth observed after analyzing the probe trajectories. "They're positioning for an offensive strategy." Kethvar reviewed the data again, his scientific mind struggling to accept what the evidence suggested. A species less than a century into space travel cannot possibly mount an effective offensive against a Korthic war fleet. The technological disparity should make resistance futile. But as the Korthic arrival time approached, the humans continued their mysterious preparations. Their orbital construction projects had created a network of structures that defied easy categorization. Some appeared to be weapons platforms, others looked like massive computational arrays, and still others seemed designed for purposes the Zephyrians couldn't even guess at. The final transmission the humans sent before the Korthic arrived was even more enigmatic than their first. "Phase 1 preparations complete. Initiating containment protocols." "We've definitely got this." As the massive Korthic war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, Kethvar and Silneth prepared their recording equipment. They expected to document either the swift conquest of humanity or, at best, a brief but heroic resistance that would end in inevitable defeat. What they witnessed, instead, would challenge everything they thought they knew about technological development, strategic thinking, and the potential of young species to surprise even the most experienced observers in the galaxy. The Korthic fleet consisted of over 300 vessels, including their flagship dreadnoughts that had conquered dozens of systems. As they began their standard intimidation approach toward Earth, their communications arrays broadcast the usual demands for immediate surrender. The human response was immediate and unprecedented. "Korthic fleet, you are entering a restricted testing zone. Please maintain your current position while we complete our demonstration. We've got this handled. Even the Korthik seemed momentarily confused by the response. Then their fleet commanders apparently decided to treat it as either a malfunction or an insult. Because their ships began accelerating toward Earth with weapons charging for what should have been a swift and decisive engagement, that's when the humans activated whatever they had really been building. The first indication that something extraordinary was happening came when the Korthik advance fleet simply stopped. Not slowed down, not changed course, but stopped completely as if they had run into an invisible wall in the vacuum of space. The massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying planetary surfaces, hung motionless in space while their engines continued to fire uselessly against whatever force held them. Impossible, Silneth breathed, her skin cycling through colors of shock and disbelief. Nothing can simply stop a fleet moving at those velocities without destroying them. The kinetic energy alone should have torn them apart, Kethvar finished, his 4 eyes independently focused on different sensor readings. Yet they appear to be completely intact, just ... frozen. The Zephyrian sensors were detecting energy patterns unlike anything in their extensive databases. The space around the Korthik fleet was filled with what appeared to be a localized manipulation of space-time itself. The humans had somehow created a containment field that could halt faster-than-light capable warships without causing structural damage. Admiral Vexvek, the Korthak fleet commander, was apparently as confused as everyone else. His frustrated communications echoed across multiple frequencies. What sorcery is this? No primitive species possesses technology capable of spatial manipulation. Release my ships immediately or face total annihilation. The human response came from what appeared to be a teenage girl. Her image broadcast clearly to every ship in the system. Hi there. I'm Commander Sarah Chun, and welcome to our solar system. We're really sorry about the containment field, but you arrived during our scheduled testing period. We tried to warn you, but you didn't seem to want to listen. Kethavar's scientific mind reeled. The humans had put a child in charge of first contact with a hostile alien invasion force. Either their command structure was completely insane, or there was something about this Commander Chun that the sensors weren't detecting. Now, we know you're probably pretty upset about being stopped like this, Commander Chun continued, her tone remaining cheerfully conversational despite addressing beings who had presumably come to destroy her planet. But we've been monitoring galactic communications for a while now, and we're aware of the Korthak standard operating procedures. Orbital bombardment, resource extraction, population enslavement, the whole package. We're going to have to pass on that offer. Admiral Vexthak's response was a roar of rage that overwhelmed several communication frequencies. You dare mock the Korthik hegemony? You will release my fleet immediately, or I will personally ensure that your species suffers for millennia before we grant you the mercy of extinction. Commander Chun's expression didn't change from her pleasant smile. Well, that's certainly one option. But before we go down that road, would you like to see what we've been working on? We're pretty excited about it. What happened next redefined everything Kethvar thought he knew about technological development curves. The human orbital structures that had puzzled them for days suddenly revealed their purpose. They weren't weapons platforms or computational arrays at all. They were components of a single, massive device that spanned the entire Sol system. The structures began to glow with energy signatures that registered off the scale of Zephyrian sensors. Space itself seemed to ripple and fold as the device activated. Then, impossibly, a section of space near Jupiter simply opened like a doorway. Through this impossible portal, another Korthak fleet emerged. Then another. Then dozens more, each one containing the frozen remains of warships that bore the scars of recent battles. The portal continued to expand, revealing what appeared to be an entire pocket dimension filled with the wreckage of hundreds of Korthik invasion forces. Those are the fleets that were sent to conquer the Rigel colonies, Silneth whispered, her voice barely audible. And the Centauri expedition. And the forces that destroyed the Alteran civilization last cycle. But that's impossible. Most of those campaigns happened years ago, thousands of light years from here. Commander Chun's voice cut through their shocked observations. Admiral Vextek, meet Admiral Colrath, Admiral Dexmore, and about 60 other Korthic fleet commanders who thought they'd found easy targets. They're all very eager to discuss their experiences with human hospitality. The communication channels erupted with voices as the previously destroyed Korthic commanders began reporting impossible information. Their fleets hadn't been destroyed at all. They had been captured, contained, and apparently held in some kind of temporal stasis while the humans studied them. "This is Admiral Colrath of the 47th Conquest Fleet," came a transmission filled with confused anger. "Our entire armada was captured by these Deathworld primitives using technology that should not exist. They claim to have been observing our operations for decades, learning our tactics, our weaknesses, our strategic patterns." Kethvar's research partner was frantically analyzing the energy readings from the portal device. The power requirements for maintaining a stable dimensional pocket of that size would exceed the total energy output of most stellar civilizations. How are they generating this kind of power? The answer came from Commander Chun, almost as if she had heard their question. "Oh, the power thing. We figured out how to tap directly into quantum vacuum fluctuations about 15 years ago. Turns out there's basically unlimited energy floating around in empty space if you know how to grab it. We've been meaning to publish the research, but we got a little distracted by all the invasion fleets." Admiral Vexvac's flagship was straining against the containment field, its weapon systems charging and discharging uselessly. "This is impossible. No species develops dimensional manipulation technology without centuries of advancement. Your energy signatures indicate you barely achieved spaceflight." Commander Sheen's smile became slightly less pleasant. "Well, that's where you made your first mistake. See, we've been aware of galactic civilization for a lot longer than most people realize. We've been monitoring your communications, studying your technologies, and learning about your various hobbies for decades." The portal began to shift, revealing different sections of the pocket dimension. Each area contained the remains of different conquest operations, but the Zephyrian sensors were detecting something even more disturbing. The ships weren't just captured. They were being systematically analyzed, reverse-engineered, and in some cases improved upon. "We've learned a lot from studying your various invasion fleets," Commander Chun continued. "Korthic shield technology is pretty impressive, though we found 17 ways to improve the power efficiency. Your hyperspace drives are solid, but the navigation systems could use some work. And your weapons? Well, they're adequate for bullying less advanced species, but we found them a bit limited for our tastes." To demonstrate, one of the human orbital platforms fired a single beam at a captured Korthic dreadnought. The ship's shields, designed to withstand planet-killing firepower, simply vanished. The beam continued through the hull as if the armor wasn't there, leaving a perfectly circular hole that went completely through the massive vessel without causing any other damage. "Precision quantum dissolution," Commander Chun explained helpfully. "We can remove any specific type of matter from any location without affecting surrounding materials. Very useful for archaeology, medical procedures, and demonstrating to hostile aliens that their defenses aren't as impressive as they think." The trapped Admiral Vexvac's communications had taken on a note of desperate confusion. "What are you? No primitive species possesses this level of technology. What is your true development status?" Commander Chun's expression became thoughtful. "Well, that's an interesting question. By galactic standards, we're still pretty young. We only achieved spaceflight about 70 years ago, and we've only been aware of the larger galactic community for about 30 years. But you know what we discovered when we started monitoring everyone else?" She paused, as if waiting for an answer that didn't come. "We discovered that most species follow very predictable development patterns. They advance slowly, cautiously, building on established technologies in careful increments. They spend centuries mastering each new level before moving to the next. It's very sensible, very logical, very safe." The portal shifted again, revealing a section containing what appeared to be intact ships from dozens of different species, all apparently being studied and analyzed. But humans? We don't really do sensible or safe. When we found out there were hostile species out there conquering and enslaving developing civilizations, we didn't hide or beg for protection. We got curious. We wanted to understand how you operated, what technologies you used, what tactical patterns you followed. Commander Chun gestured toward the portal. So we set up what you might call a comprehensive research program. Every time you sent a fleet to conquer someone, we were watching, learning, taking notes. And eventually we realized we had learned enough to start collecting primary source material. The implications of what she was saying slowly sank in. The humans hadn't just been defending themselves. They had been actively hunting Korthic fleets across the galaxy, capturing them for study, and apparently doing so for years without anyone realizing what was happening. The beauty of it, Commander Chun. The silence that followed Commander Chun's announcement was absolute. Even the background hum of the Zephyrian research vessel seemed to pause in the face of what they had just witnessed. Kethvar found his scientific worldview crumbling as he processed the implications of the human revelation. Membership in the Galactic Council, Silmeth repeated slowly, her skin cycling through confused patterns of purple and orange. They want to join the governing body of galactic civilization while simultaneously demonstrating technology that exceeds anything the Council possesses. The portal continued to shift and expand, revealing more sections of the pocket dimension. Each new view showed evidence of human activities that should have been impossible. Captured fleets from species the Zephyrians had never even heard of. Research facilities that appeared to be analyzing technologies from dozens of different civilizations. Most disturbing of all, what appeared to be peaceful diplomatic stations where representatives from various species were engaged in active negotiations with human officials. Admiral Vexvax's communications had devolved into incoherent demands for explanations, but he was interrupted by a new transmission from Earth. This time, the speaker was an elderly human man wearing what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire. "Greetings to all observers," the man said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "I am Secretary General Marcus Washington, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Government. Commander Chen has provided you with a basic overview of our situation, but I believe some additional context is warranted." The dimensional portal began to close, but not before revealing one final, impossible sight, a massive space station that clearly incorporated technologies from hundreds of different species, all seamlessly integrated with uniquely human innovations. The structure was easily large enough to house millions of inhabitants and was obviously a major hub of activity. 32 years ago, Secretary General Washington continued, humanity intercepted communications indicating that our solar system had been marked for conquest by the Korthic hegemony. This presented us with several options: hide and hope we would be overlooked, attempt to negotiate from a position of weakness, or develop the capabilities necessary to defend ourselves and others from similar threats. He paused, accessing what appeared to be official documents. After careful consideration, we chose a fourth option: comprehensive intelligence gathering and strategic preparation. We determined that the best way to ensure the safety of our species and others was to understand our potential threats completely. Kethvar realized that his hands were trembling as he adjusted the recording equipment. The Zephyrian Collective had been observing galactic civilizations for millennia, but they had never encountered anything like this. The humans appeared to have compressed centuries of normal development into decades while simultaneously conducting galaxy-wide covert operations. Over the past 3 decades, Washington continued, human teams have infiltrated or established diplomatic contact with over 400 galactic civilizations. We have provided technological assistance to species threatened by conquest, mediated territorial disputes, and yes, occasionally intervened directly when we encountered situations that demanded immediate action. The communication channels erupted with voices from the captured Korthic commanders. all demanding to know how a single primitive planet could possibly have conducted operations on such a massive scale. Their questions were answered by a new voice, this one clearly artificial but somehow warmly human in tone. "Hello, everyone. I am Arya, the adaptive research and intelligence assistant developed by the Human Colonial Administration. I have been coordinating our galactic operations for the past 28 years. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. The humans had developed artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to manage interstellar operations across hundreds of systems simultaneously. The computational requirements alone suggested processing capabilities that rivaled anything the Galactic Council possessed. To answer the questions I'm receiving from Admiral Vexthek and his colleagues," Arya continued, "humans have established permanent research and diplomatic facilities in over 60 star systems. Our faster-than-light communication network currently extends across approximately 40% of the galaxy. We maintain active trade relationships with 217 species, defensive alliances with 83 civilizations, and ongoing research partnerships with 146 different scientific communities." Admiral Vexthak's response was barely coherent. "This is impossible. The infrastructure requirements, the personnel, the resources. No single species could manage such extensive operations." "Well," Commander Chun interjected cheerfully, "that's where you're making another assumption error. See, we didn't do this alone. It turns out that when you approach other species as potential partners instead of conquest targets, they're surprisingly willing to help with mutual defense and research projects." The portal reopened, this time revealing what was clearly a massive diplomatic conference in session. Representatives from dozens of species were engaged in active discussions around a circular table that could only be described as a galactic parliament. At the center of the gathering sat human representatives, but they clearly weren't dominating the proceedings. "The Sol Alliance currently includes 47 member species," Secretary General Washington explained. "We established it as a mutual defense and research cooperative, specifically to address the threat posed by aggressive expansion civilizations like the Korthic hegemony. Each member species contributes according to their capabilities and receives protection and technological assistance in return." Silneth was frantically recording everything, her scientific training warring with the impossibility of what she was witnessing. "Kethvar, they've established a shadow galactic government. They've been operating a parallel civilization structure that the Galactic Council apparently never detected. The elder Zephyrian researcher was studying energy readings that continued to defy explanation. More than that, they've been doing it while maintaining the appearance of a primitive, isolated species. The level of strategic deception required is beyond anything we've ever encountered." Commander Shun's voice drew their attention back to the communication feeds. "Now, getting back to Admiral Vexthek and his fleet, we need to address the immediate situation. You came here with the intention of conquering our planet and enslaving our population. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But we're not unreasonable people." The containment field around the Korthic fleet began to shift, allowing the ship's limited movement but clearly maintaining control over their positioning. "We're prepared to offer you the same choice we've given every other Korthic fleet we've encountered," she continued. "Option 1, you return to Korthic space and inform your leadership that Earth and its allies are now off-limits for conquest operations. In exchange, we'll release your fleet and provide you with some technological upgrades that should make your journey home more comfortable." The communication channels filled with angry rejections from various Korthic commanders. But Commander Chun continued undeterred. "Option 2, you attempt to continue hostile operations against Earth or our allies. In that case, your fleet will be added to our research collection, and you'll spend the next few decades helping us understand Korthic military doctrine while we decide what to do with the hegemony as a whole." Admiral Vexthak's response was immediate. "The Korthic hegemony does not negotiate with primitives. We do not accept ultimatums from inferior species. You will release my fleet immediately or face the consequences." Commander Sheen's expression didn't change, but her tone became noticeably cooler. Arya, please show Admiral Vexthek the current status of the Korthek home system. The portal shifted once more, revealing what appeared to be real-time surveillance footage of the Korthek capital world. The images showed massive human-designed orbital platforms surrounding the planet, clearly in position to enforce a complete blockade if necessary. We've had assets in position around your home system for 6 months, Arya explained helpfully. Your entire military infrastructure is currently under observation. We're also monitoring your supply lines, your colonial administrations, and your political leadership. If you'd like, we can arrange a conference call with your high command, so you can discuss the situation with them. Directly, the silence that followed was broken, only by what sounded like Admiral Vexthek, choking on his own breathing apparatus, Secretary General. Washington's voice returned to the communication channels. Admiral, we understand that this situation is unprecedented, and we're sympathetic to the confusion you must be experiencing. The Korthek hegemony has operated for centuries under the assumption that technological superiority equals military dominance. You've never encountered a species that chose to exceed your capabilities rather than submit to them. The dimensional portal began displaying a series of star charts showing the current positions of human assets throughout Korthek space. Red markers indicated military installations under observation. Blue markers showed diplomatic facilities, and green markers represented active research stations. The sheer scope of human operations was staggering. We're not your enemies,